My mother-in-law called the police and had me arrested for my own husband's murder. But the real shock came when the detective showed me the photo of the other woman. A woman who had been dead for 20 years. I remember the cold, unforgiving bite of the handcuffs around my wrists. A sensation so alien and brutal it felt like it was branding my skin. The look on Barbie's face as I was led from my own home. The house Jack and I had poured our souls into was not one of grief-stricken vengeance, but of serene, almost divine satisfaction. She had won. She had finally excised the foreign element from her perfect, gilded family tree. I always knew Barbie hated me. It wasn't a fiery, passionate hatred, but something far more insidious. A cold, creeping vine of disdain that had wrapped itself around the foundation of my marriage from the very beginning. I was Mia, the German girl Jack met in a graduate school art history class. He was studying business. I was chasing a dream of becoming a graphic designer. He was solid American, rooted in the rich Iowa soil of his family's generations. I was in transplant, born in a small Bavarian town and uprooted to the Midwest at 9. Always feeling a little out of place, my accent a ghost on my tongue that only reappeared when I was tired or angry. From our first dinner at his parents' sprawling, impeccably clean colonial house, Barbie's smile was a carefully crafted mannequin's grin. A designer, she had said, her voice like chilled champagne. How creative. Not very stable though, is it? Jack needs someone with both feet on the ground. She had wanted him to marry Sarah, a girl from the country club whose family owned half the county. Sarah was safe, predictable, and most importantly, came from the same social stratum. But Jack loved me. He loved my passion, my otherness. The way I saw the world in shades and compositions he'd never considered. We built a life together, a beautiful, messy, wonderful life. We dated for 5 passionate years, traveled through Europe, and then got married in a small, heartfelt ceremony by a serene lake. His father, a quiet, kind-hearted man named Robert, gave a toast that brought tears to my eyes. Speaking of love that bridges oceans, Barbie wore a tasteful cream-colored dress and cried discreetly into a lace handkerchief, though I saw the way her knuckles were white as she gripped her champagne flute. We bought a charming, slightly dilapidated Victorian house on the edge of town. It was our shared project. Jack, with his surprising aptitude for carpentry, restored the original woodwork. I painted murals in the hallways and designed a sprawling, wild garden. It was our sanctuary. The problems truly began when Robert, my father-in-law, passed away from a sudden, aggressive cancer. He had been the buffer, the peacemaker. He could calm Barbie with a single look, a soft word. With him gone, the levee broke. Barbie became a constant, suffocating presence. She'd show up unannounced, her key, which she'd insisted we copy for her in case of emergencies, jangling in the lock. She'd run a finger over the mantelpiece, tooting at the dust. A wife's place is to create a home, Mia, not to be hunched over a computer all day dreaming up logos, she'd say, her voice a syrupy poison. Jack tried to manage her, but he was drowning in his own grief, and part of him, the little boy who craved his mother's approval, was secretly glad for her overbearing attention. He started spending more time at her house, going through his father's things, and coming home with a distant look in his eyes. The final straw for her, the event that turned her quiet disdain into active warfare, was the von Hessler account. The von Hessler family were old-money German industrialists, notoriously private and discerning. Through a connection from my uncle in Kobach, they reached out to me for a complete rebranding of their North American holdings. It was the career-making project I had worked my entire life for. A 6-figure contract that would allow me to hire a small team, lease a bright studio space downtown, and finally have my name mean something in the design world. I was ecstatic. I danced around our kitchen with Buster, our goofy golden retriever, while Jack spun me around, his face beaming with pride. "That's my wife," he'd exclaimed, lifting me off the ground. That night, We opened a bottle of expensive Riesling I'd been saving and dreamed out loud about the future. My studio, maybe a vacation home in Colorado, a life built on our shared successes. We made the mistake of telling Barbie over Sunday dinner. The silence that fell over her ornate dining room was heavier than the solid mahogany table. She slowly set down her fork. "Spending so much time and energy on these foreigners," she finally said, her voice dangerously calm. "You should be focusing on what matters. On family. On providing Jack with an heir. A real legacy. Blood is the only legacy that lasts, Mia. Not pictures on a screen." I had long since learned to let her comments about children roll off my back. We decided we were happy as we were, a team of two, with our dog and our ambitions. But the legacy comment, the way she spat the word foreigners, struck a deep, raw nerve. My work, my heritage, my very identity, she saw it all as a threat. The night it happened, the tension that had been simmering for months finally boiled over. Jack came home from another evening at his mother's with a determined, almost frantic look in his eyes. "She showed me the papers, Mia," he said, without even a hello. "The investment. In her cousin's tech startup. It's a sure thing. Dad would have wanted me to." My heart sank. I had spent the last week secretly researching this cousin. He had a history of failed ventures and lawsuits. The business plan was a collection of buzzwords with no substance. It was a money pit. "Jack, no," I said, my voice tight. "It's a scam. I've looked into it. We can't throw your father's inheritance away on this." His face darkened. "You've looked into it? You're so busy with your German counts and your designs. You think you know everything about business now? This is my family, Mia. This is what we do. We support each other." The argument escalated quickly, fueled by weeks of resentment and grief. We shouted in the living room, our voices echoing off the walls we had so lovingly restored. He accused me of being jealous of his family's closeness, of trying to isolate him. I accused him of being a puppet, blind to his mother's manipulation, of letting her poison our marriage. "It's always her, Jack. It's always what Barbie wants, what Barbie thinks. When do we get to live our life? Maybe I want the life she envisions. A stable life, a traditional life. Not this bohemian fantasy." It was the first time he had ever dismissed my career so cruelly. The word bohemian felt like a slap. I felt a chasm open between us, so wide and deep I couldn't see the other side. "I can't do this right now," I choked out, grabbing my car keys. "I'm going to the office. I need to breathe." The rain started as I drove, a torrential, angry downpour that matched the storm inside me. My downtown studio was a mess of sketches and fabric swatches for the Von Hessler project. A world of beauty and order. I lost myself in it for hours, the rhythmic scratching of my pen, and the soft glow of the computer screen a temporary balm. By 2 a.m., the anger had subsided, leaving behind a hollow, aching sadness. I just wanted to go home, to apologize, to hold my husband and find our way back to each other. I returned to a dark, silent house. No porch light. A cold dread, sharper than any I had ever felt, began to coil in my stomach. "Jack," I called out, my voice trembling. "Jack, I'm sorry, let's talk." I found him in the living room. He was lying on the beautiful Persian rug we'd haggled for and bought together on a sun-drenched afternoon in Istanbul. The room was wrecked, a side table overturned, books scattered. And there, near his head, was the heavy cut crystal decanter his father had given him, a treasured family heirloom. Its contents, a fine amber whiskey, were seeping into the wool, mingling with something darker, thicker. Blood. There was so much blood. The scream that tore from my throat was inhuman. I stumbled to him, falling to my knees, my hands fluttering uselessly over his still form. His skin was cold. I remember the gritty texture of the wool rug against my knees, the metallic smell of blood, the deafening silence. I fumbled for my phone, my fingers slick and clumsy, and dialed 911, sobbing incoherently to the dispatcher. The police arrived with a cacophony of lights and radios. I was wrapped in a coarse blanket, shivering uncontrollably, trying to answer an officer's questions. And then, as if summoned by the drama, Barbie arrived. She swept in, wearing a silk robe over her nightgown, her face a masterpiece of staged horror. She took one look at the scene, at me, the disheveled, hysterical wife, and her performance began. She let out a wail that was perfectly pitched between agony and fury. "She did it," she shrieked, pointing a perfectly manicured, trembling finger at me. "Officer, she did it. They were having terrible problems. She was having an affair. I heard them fighting on the phone earlier. She told him she wanted a divorce and he refused. She's a violent, jealous woman. She could never be the wife he needed." I was too deep in shock to even form a defense. An affair? It was a ludicrous, monstrous fiction. But the police had to take her statement seriously. They found my fingerprints on the decanter. Of course they were there, I'd polished it just yesterday. The neighbor confirmed hearing a loud, vicious argument. And then Detective Miller, a young man with a weary face and sharp eyes, delivered the coup de grace. Forensics found traces of my lipstick on Jack's collar, positioned suggestively, and the digital forensics team discovered large, recent transfers from my personal savings to an offshore bank account in the Cayman Islands. It was a frame-up. A diabolical, airtight frame-up. As they led me out in handcuffs, past the blinding flashbulbs of the reporters Barbie had likely tipped off, I looked back. She stood on my porch, a single, perfect tear tracing a path through her expertly applied makeup. But her eyes, as they met mine, were dry, clear, and filled with a terrifying, absolute triumph. My parents, devastated but unwavering, mortgaged their comfortable home to pay for my exorbitant bail and hire the best defense attorney they could find, a razor-sharp woman named Ms. Evans. My father, a man of few words, held my hand throughout the arraignment, his silence speaking volumes of his support. My mother, her American spirit fused with German pragmatism, refused to break. "We will fight this, Liebling," she whispered, her voice fierce and low. "We know you. We know the truth." Life on bail was a purgatory. The media painted me as the Black Widow from Berlin, a cold, calculating gold digger who killed her all-American husband when he discovered her infidelity and financial betrayal. The von Hessler family, citing the unfortunate publicity, dropped me. My reputation was atomized. I was a pariah. I spent my days trapped in my old childhood bedroom, surrounded by the ghosts of a happier past, trying to deconstruct Barbie's plot. The offshore account? She must have had access to my laptop during one of her unannounced visits. The staged fight? She was a master of psychological manipulation. Ms. Evans was my lone warrior. The case is circumstantial, but it's a perfect circle of circumstantial evidence, she told me one afternoon in her sterile office. We need to break a link. We're focusing on the money. A week later, she called me in. Detective Miller was there, his expression unreadable, but his posture less rigid than before. "We've been tracing the digital footprint," Ms. Evans began, tapping a pen on her legal pad. "Whoever set this up was smart, but not infallible. They used a series of proxy servers, but we managed to follow the breadcrumbs. The final authorization for the account creation came from a specific IP address, registered to a private residence." My heart was a frantic bird against my ribs. Whose residence? Detective Miller slid a grainy, printed photograph across the polished table. It was a still from a bank's external security camera, time-stamped the day the account was funded. It showed a woman at an ATM, her face partially hidden by a wide-brimmed hat and large sunglasses. "This is the person we believe is your husband's alleged mistress, the one your mother-in-law mentioned." The one who controlled the account. I stared at the photo. The woman's profile, the sharp angle of her jaw, the way she held her shoulders. It was hauntingly familiar, yet I couldn't place her. It wasn't me. That's not me, I stated, my voice stronger than it had been in weeks. We know, Detective Miller said quietly. We ran it through facial recognition. It's not a perfect match for you, but it did give us a hit. A 92% probability match to someone else. He slid another photograph from his folder. This one was a faded color picture, a university yearbook photo from the early 2000s. It showed a young woman with Jack's warm smile and Barbie's piercing ice blue eyes. She was stunning, radiating a confident, almost challenging energy. The caption read, Charlotte Morrison pre-law. Her name was Charlotte, the detective said. Jack's older sister. The room seemed to tilt on its axis. Jack never had a sister. I whispered, my mind reeling. He was an only child. He told me that. It was one of the things he was sometimes sad about. According to all public records, birth certificates, everything you'd normally check, yes, he was an only child, Ms. Evans interjected, leaning forward. But we dug deeper. Obituary archives, old social registry pages. Charlotte Morrison existed. She was Barbie and Robert's firstborn. A golden child. She died in a single-car accident during her junior year of college. It was a massive trauma. The family closed ranks. They never spoke of her again. They moved houses. They effectively erased her. I looked from the vibrant, living girl in the yearbook photo to the shadowy, anonymous figure at the ATM. The resemblance was uncanny. It was the same woman, just 2 decades older. But that's impossible. I breathed, the horror of it beginning to dawn. She's been dead for 20 years. It is impossible, Detective Miller agreed, his voice grim. Which means someone is going to a great, and deeply twisted, deal of trouble to impersonate a ghost. The pieces began to click into place with a terrifying, logical clarity. Barbie's obsession with legacy, with bloodlines. Her pathological grief. Her hatred for me. An outsider who represented a future she couldn't control. A future that didn't include the ghost of her perfect daughter. She hadn't just framed me. She had resurrected her dead child to be the instrument of my destruction. We devised a plan. A desperate, dangerous gambit. I would go to Barbie's house, wearing a wire provided by the police. I would play the broken, defeated woman, ready to confess, but desperate for answers. I would appeal to her ego, her need for victory to be absolute. Ms. Evans and Detective Miller would be parked in an unmarked van down the street, listening to every word. I found her in Robert's old study, a room that smelled of old leather and dust. She was sitting in his high-back chair, going through a pile of documents, looking like a queen holding court. She didn't seem surprised to see me. Barbie, I said, letting my shoulders slump, injecting a tremor into my voice. I can't fight this anymore. The evidence, it's too much. I'm going to plead guilty. She looked up, her eyes narrowing slightly, assessing me. But I need to understand, I pleaded, taking a step closer. I need to know why you did it. Why you created that woman. Why you used a ghost to destroy me. A slow, ugly, and utterly genuine smile spread across her lips. The mask of the grieving mother and grandmother fell away, revealing the rotten core beneath. The performance was over. A ghost? Is that what you think she is? She sneered, her voice low and venomous. Oh, you naive little fool. Charlotte was everything. She was brilliant, beautiful, ambitious. She was going to be a lawyer, take over the world. My husband's little princess. He adored her. When she died, a part of him died with her. What was left, Jack, was just a consolation prize. A pleasant, simple boy. Her words were like physical blows, each one revealing a deeper layer of her madness. But the money, The offshore account. I prompted, needing her to say it for the recording. All for her, Barbie said, her eyes gleaming with a fanatical light. Everything was always for her. My husband, sentimental fool that he was, set up a secret trust for her before he died. A massive trust. But it was tied up with ridiculous conditions. It could only be fully accessed by Charlotte herself, or in the event of her death, it would be released to her estate only upon the resolution of the family line. Specifically, upon Jack's death, provided it wasn't at the hands of a blood relative. He thought he was protecting it, making it safe. She let out a dry, crackling laugh. He never imagined I would be the one to resolve it. The sheer, cold calculation of it took my breath away. So you killed your own son, I whispered, the horror finally fully dawning. You killed Jack for money? I needed you gone, you blight on my family, she spat, leaning forward, her face contorted. And I needed a reason for Jack to be gone that wouldn't lead back to me. You were the perfect solution. A jealous foreign wife. I used my own daughter's memory to bury you both. It's poetic, don't you think? I brought Charlotte back to cleanse our line of your impurity. She was my legacy. And you were nothing. A defective placeholder. You couldn't even give me a grandchild to replace them. You took my son's attention from me, so I took him from you. It's only fair. That's when the police, led by Detective Miller, burst into the room. Barbie's confession, caught on the high-quality digital recorder, was damning and complete. She was read her rights. Her face a frozen mask of fury, not remorse. She had killed her own son to access a dead woman's inheritance, all to preserve a twisted fantasy, and punish me for the crime of existing. The trial was a media circus. The story of the mother who killed her son and framed her daughter-in-law by impersonating her dead daughter was too gothic, too shocking to ignore. The full extent of her plot emerged. She had hired a down-on-her-luck actress who bore a striking resemblance to the young Charlotte, coaching her meticulously, paying her a small fortune to play the ghost at the ATM, and in a few other staged scenes before she disappeared. She had killed Jack herself with that crystal decanter after I left, using the knowledge of our fight to stage the scene perfectly. Her pathological grief for her daughter and her venomous hatred for me had fused into a murderous plot of Shakespearean proportions. Barbie was found guilty on all counts: first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, perjury, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. There was no victory in the verdict. Jack was still gone. The house we loved stood empty, a monument to a happiness that had been murdered twice over. The life we built was ashes. I sold the house, the furniture, everything. I couldn't bear the memories, now forever tainted by the horror of that night. A year after the trial, I moved back to Germany. I needed an ocean between me and that town. I settled in a small, quiet town in the Bavarian Alps, not far from where my father was born. The air was clean and sharp, smelling of pine and snow, not of lies, grief, and betrayal. I found a small apartment with a view of the mountains, and began the slow, painful process of reassembling the pieces of myself. One day, a package arrived from my father. It contained a few remaining items he'd been storing for me. Among my old tennis trophies and yearbooks was a small, intricately carved wooden box I hadn't seen in years. Inside, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was the heirloom ring. The ring Jack had once tried to get from his mother to make a formal proposal. His father, dear, kind Robert, must have seen the darkness in his wife. He must have taken the ring and, before he died, sent it to my parents for safekeeping, a silent, posthumous act of faith in me and in the love his son and I shared. I held the cool, smooth gold in my palm. It wasn't a symbol of a lost future anymore. It was a relic, a testament to a love that was real and beautiful, even if the world it existed in was poisoned. It was proof that not everything in that family was corrupt. I sold the ring to a reputable antique dealer. The money was substantial. I used it as seed capital to start my own small, independent design firm. I called it Mia Design. Simple. Mine. I never got married again. I had relationships, but I kept a part of myself guarded, a wall around the garden of my heart. I learned a brutal truth. Some storms are so violent they don't just break the branches. They tear the tree out by its roots, smash the pot, and scatter the soil to the wind. You can't go back. You can't replant yourself in the same ground. The only thing left to do is to gather what scattered seeds you can find new, different soil, and grow again differently, more resiliently. And sometimes, the legacy you build from those salvaged seeds, though scarred and shaped by storms, is stronger and more truly your own than any gilded inheritance built on ghosts and blood.